Hi, Dr. Giuffre.
Hey,
How are
how-
you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'll teach you how to pronounce my name. It's Jew and then Free. J-U and then F-R-E-E. Jew Free.
Giuffre. Oh, I am terribly
No,
sorry.
no, don't be sorry. It's a hard one. Yeah, so it's no problem. I've
It's
heard many versions. I can remember God,
Giuffre.
grade five, my teacher called me Michael Giraffe. So after that, I was called Giraffe for a year in school.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am glad we were not on Facebook Live then. So at least I have the opportunity to know how to say it properly.
Yeah,
Giuffre. That's
Jew Free. Yeah,
wonderful.
yes.
Yes. You having a great morning?
Actually, yes, no problem. I mean, a little technical glitch,
Yes.
so typical for a Monday, but what the heck, right?
Well,
No,
this is it. This is life. We just have to pivot and move on.
exactly. I'm
Regroup.
sorry about that for you because I know you had probably a throng of people wanting to do it live, which would have been our preference, but we have
Oh,
to do it.
absolutely. 100%. Yes. And I love the live shows because it just gives you this buzz. Uh,
Yes,
but that's nonetheless, we have the video, which is the most important thing. So I'm going to actually do like our traditional start to the
sure.
video. So I'm going to, right now, I'm going to go into like the script that I normally would
Sure.
say, and then we can get into our discussion on the Zoom video now.
Okay. All right. You just, I'll just go with the flow. You do it the way you'd like to do it, and I'll try to adjust. Okay.
Sounds amazing. Thank
All right.
you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pulse by HealthJobhub, Facebook Live talk show hosted by Prashanthi Naidu. Our special guest today is Dr. Michael Giuffre, Pediatric Cardiologist, MBA, past president of Alberta Medical Association, candidate-elect for 2021 Canadian Medical Association, and physician leader from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. A mark of a good leader is not only the many academic and professional accomplishments, but also the ability to inspire others. I'd like to read a recommendation I viewed on LinkedIn about Dr. Michael Giuffre, which really inspired me. Michael is a thoughtful and considerate physician leader, focused on ensuring that patients and their families are provided with the services and support they expect. I worked with Michael for many years at Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary, both as staff physicians. During these years, Michael's interest in serving as an effective leader in healthcare led him to pursue a MBA, and he subsequently convinced me to follow in his footsteps. He is masterful at the art of obtaining consensus, but not afraid to proceed if full agreement by all parties is not achieved. Above all, he values his family and friends, and over the years has been able to achieve parity between his work and personal time. Michael is the kind of leader that people want to follow and emulate, and the kind of friend one is fortunate to have. Wow, this is an outstanding recommendation. I must say, when I read this, I was truly deeply inspired. And, as I say, leaders are not just about professional qualifications and being on, boards or presidents. It's also the ability to inspire. And I truly mean this. I was inspired reading this. Congratulations, Dr. Giuffre. So tell me, how are you today? It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm very good. It's a Monday morning and I've had my cup of coffee and I'm ready to roll. Did a little bit of emails this morning and just a tidy up day for me today and then clinic through the week.
Amazing. And thank you for finding the time to be on our Facebook Live show. And to all our guests, unfortunately, this is not live. I wish it was. We are broadcasting from Zoom because we've had so many technical difficulties this morning. But nonetheless, we are here and you get to see the video. So thank you for bearing with us. Pulse is all about, sharing what inspired healthcare leaders, healthcare professionals to do the work they do. And I'd love to know from you, what inspires you to choose your career in medicine and to become a physician?
I think that the number one inspiration for me actually has been my love and connection to children. So throughout my life, I've had wonderful experiences with my large family, with my nieces and nephews, with their friends, with schoolmates, and always surrounded myself with children, whether they be infants or little people along the way. And I knew early in my life that that was going to be a very, very big part of my life. And it has been throughout. I can remember a little story, maybe in grade 5, I think the teacher was going around the room and saying to everyone, so what would you like to be when you grow up? And I can remember the first time it kind of came to me, and I remember standing up and saying, oh, I would like to become a pediatrician. And everyone in the class went, what is that? That was kind of maybe my first realization that my destiny was to be around children throughout my life. And I'm inspired by them. I'm invigorated every time I see a little person, whether they have a heart problem or another issue that they have to deal with it, whether it be physical or mental, that their resilience is amazing. Their openness is amazing. Their outlooks are amazing. And all they need is a little nudge and help along the way. And it's inspiring. That's what I'm inspired by.
Amazing. And, you know, when I was a kid, I always said the same to myself, that I'd love to become a pediatric physician. And unfortunately, it did not go that way, but I was delighted with the career that I eventually chose. But I'm truly inspired with that sort of passion and that dream to help kids and to, you know, be there for them in their, you know, time of need. So great work and keep it up. In regards to your journey of specializing and, you know, taking up various leadership roles, do you mind sharing some of that? Like, what inspired you to go from being a doctor, then to specializing, which I know you touched on a little bit in the first question, but then to take up all the many leadership and board roles that you have been actively involved in?
So I think early in my life, I decided that I might be able to contribute to society with a little research. So I did graduate studies at University of Alberta. And then no matter how much I talked to those test tubes, they didn't talk back to me. So I ended up getting into medical school and going to the University of Calgary. And then from there, my destiny was towards pediatrics. So I applied and got into a pediatric residency program and loved that and was inspired by really cardiology. It just resonated with me and the complexity of it and the innovations that are associated with it. And so I ended up doing cardiology. And in the meantime, I'd gone to Australia to do my final year of pediatric residency, came back, went to Toronto and did my pediatric cardiology fellowship there. And then from there, I went to Houston at Baylor and did pacemakers, electrophysiology as a subspecialty. And then came back to Calgary, which was hometown for me, family here, thinking that I liked the Canadian system. I liked the fact that the people are going to get the care if they had $1 in their pocket or $1 million in their pocket. It was the same kind of care. And for me, that was something that was truly important. And then probably, maybe 10 years or so into my career, I realized that there's really a big divide between healthcare administration and physicians. And I found often we were not on the same page. So naively, I decided I would go and do my MBA. And I went back to school, got that about 20 years ago, and thought that I would come back to the table, bridging the gap, so to speak, between the important business administrative part and the physicians. And lo and behold, I didn't think I filled that very well because it created a larger gap, because on the other hand, you become more of a threat rather than a bridge when you have the same knowledge base or close to the same knowledge base as those in business. So instead of that, I went towards more physician advocacy and went the route of AMA and CMA. And in the meantime, pushed towards some of the NGO work and board work that would associate me back again with children and caring for the world in my own little way. So that's a brief summary of of many years, but I loved the journey along the way, had a family along the way, and now I'm being inspired by my kids.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. And I'm sure if anybody's listening, it will inspire them as well to realize their full potential. Because as you demonstrated, learning doesn't just stop once you have reached the top of your profession. You're a specialist, you went back to school, you did your MBA, and you continued on this lifelong journey of learning. And one of the things I always live by is learning never stops. You know, you can continue and you can achieve such magnificent things no matter what the age is. So you're truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing that journey.
Thank you. I'm humbled by my opportunity. I think we all have to think that lots of times we're privileged. And I think I realized, even though I'm the grandson of immigrants and in my family, we were the first group of children that ended up becoming professionals. We did so out of privilege, and there's lots of people that don't share that privilege, and that is throughout our society, unfortunately, still, whether it's a developed country or an underdeveloped country. And I think if each of us in our own way contribute to making our world a better place, we end up with a better world.
100%. I totally agree. And that actually brings me very nicely onto the next question. What would you consider is your greatest accomplishment in terms of the learning experience, being, the past president of the AMA, for example?
I think, that's a hard question because there's so many things that come to mind. But my biggest learning occurred when I went overseas with UNICEF, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So we were asked, I was on the board of UNICEF, the national board, and one of our tasks was to pay for our own trips and to go over to Kenya and decide where the substantial funds were going to be spent. Mm. And so we went as a group and we went to northern Kenya. We were actually at the northern border where it's Sudan and Ethiopia and Kenya. And it was eye-opening for me. Watching the communities, watching how people would come towards the UNICEF cars and trucks and recognize that this represented a leap for them in terms of basic needs that they had. And it made me realize the importance of things like clean water, of maternal health care, of food and nutrition, and really more the plight of women in underdeveloped countries, because quite often I was struck by the male gender being in a position of receiving rather than giving, is my kindest way of putting it, and where the women would have the burden of, for example, even getting water. And so in those northern nomadic countries, the girls generally, once they hit puberty or pre-puberty, they were taken from school and they became the water people, and they would go out walking for miles, putting themselves at risk and getting water. And then quite often they were expected to bear children early in their lives. So they were taken out of a stream that would allow them to have a particularly, I would say, balanced life or fulfilling life, to that of servitude. And I, with the rest of the group, we decided that we were going to have essentially 95% of the funds head towards the girls and the women in northern Kenya. And on this occasion, we had been amazingly inspired by one of the female leaders in Kenya who had gone out to America, who was from northern Kenya, and she ended up with her PhD from America and came back with us. And it was truly astounding to watch the magnet that this woman had on all these young children who realized that if they reached out and reached far and stuck with the opportunities that came their way, they could actually accomplish. And so it was like watching, in the old days, Wayne Gretzky or Jerome McGinley or someone come into town and everyone came and all these girls would touch and talk and see what this woman did. And I think that's really what inspired me. And maybe the second trip was my trip to Haiti with UNICEF. and seeing a country that is continually decimated by natural disaster and the resilience and the strength of people trying to help out that country. So for me, humbly, I would say my accomplishment was my realization that there's a massive need out there, that even though we're all in our little niche here, rather protected from it all, there's a whole world out there that needs a lot of help. So for me, that remains my inspiration, trying to do the small things that matter in the world and contribute. And, you know, when I watch organizations, NGOs, and those groups, and all the volunteers that go with it, it gives me confidence that our world's okay, that it's actually, in spite of all the negativity, that we're going to be okay, that we can actually all give in our own way and make it a better place. So that's my inspiration still to this day.
Absolutely. And, you know, I take that, I speak to a lot of physicians, and I take that as a trait amongst physicians that, you know, what inspires them and what motivates them, exactly what you said. It's the plight of people that's less fortunate and the willingness to want to help and to serve and to make a difference in somebody's life. And thank you for sharing that story, and also taking us on that journey into Kenya and to understand the plight of women and the hardships that they face. It is definitely going to be a long struggle, but the fact that, you know, people like yourself, you know, have taken these steps to make a difference, it really, you know, is the turning point. It's trying to improve the life of so many people. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
You know, you've had an incredible career. Like, I look at your LinkedIn profile and I see the number of board positions you've had, the work you've done with UNICEF, the work you're doing at the University of Calgary, as well as, you know, with the different associations. What would you say are your top 3 career highlights?
I think one for sure was being president of the AMA. During that year, 2012, we had a particularly difficult time with the government in terms of trying to get a contract. And it was the era of, Premier was Alison Redford, and the health minister was Fred Horn. And it was a long drawn out affair where we had to reestablish our foothold, not only in terms of the business contract, but also in terms of our place in healthcare reform and in having a seat at the table and having a respected voice. And so not only did we achieve a 7-year agreement that was stabilizing, taking certainty back into our plate from a business point of view, it also allowed physicians in Alberta to have a voice. So signing that $27 billion contract was the largest one I've ever signed in my life, and probably will remain so. And then I think the second one would be being called back to the table this year. So as of February last year, the current negotiations with the Kenney government had fallen down. Bill 21 came in, where really it was a government that decided, rather than continuing a contract, to rip up a contract, to impose their will without the say of physicians in Alberta, and to really set a different tone and pace and double down against us as a profession. And I think we were attacked. I think rural physicians, urban physicians, specialists, family physicians, we collectively felt we were being attacked and demeaned. And I felt honored to be asked to come back to try to reconvene the group in February after the negotiations committee had fallen down, and surrounded myself with similar-minded people on both sides, to be honest. And we were able to kind of reconvene. And this February will mark my 1 year of being re-involved. And I'm hoping, really fingers crossed, toes crossed, that we end up with something that we can present to our physicians for ratification in the next while, but only time will tell. And that's been an amazing process of watching negotiations at its worst, and maybe perhaps turning at their best, where people finally get their minds around things. And then my last one, I guess, in terms of medical career, would be my 3 years on the CMA board. That was in 2012 to 2015, and it was a time when the Canadian Medical Association was truly reforming. We had 11 new CMA board members come in that year, and so there was truly an incentive to kind of relook at the organization. To I have to be careful what I say, but it was a little bit of an old boys' school in terms of how it was run, lack of innovation, very stuck in its path. So in those 3 years, we modernized the CMA. We reduced its board from 35 down to 20. We hired a new CEO. We created a company within CMA called Jewel, where we hired another CEO that dealt with innovation. We changed the whole governance of the organization so that it was becoming more relevant to members, rather than the other 13 provincial associations or the territory. We wanted to have an advocacy that was truly relevant to members, that actually made a difference. And even in this last year, I think that has happened. The CMA put together a policy on racism. They put together a policy on EDI, so equality, diversity, inclusion. And so the progress of CMA, I'm really proud of. I think in the last 10 years, they are leading as an association in terms of doing things correctly, looking at things that matter. They care about the environment. They have an environmental policy. So I would be privileged to lead them, and I would be their spokesperson, and I'm buying into their advocacy. I'm buying into their priorities. So yes, those would be my 3 accomplishments.
Wow. Pretty amazing and pretty incredible. And I wish you all the best for your bid for the CMA president. And, there's so much you touched on, especially talking about your work with regards to the physician compensation situation in Alberta. I know physicians are up in arms, and, I keep on thinking to myself, this is the global pandemic. Across the world, physicians are treated like the best across the world. And in Alberta, for some reason, they decide to have these discussions at this point in time. And I just cannot understand why. But I'm glad there's a leader like yourself that's at the forefront of this conversation that will help this process. And I really do hope a resolution is made, because in my job, I speak to a lot of physicians, and I know a lot of physicians who are wanting to leave and are making plans to leave. And then what's going to happen to the healthcare system in Alberta, right? So, it's really difficult at this time. So I wish you the very best in that. And with regards to, sorry, continue.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with you. I think, the government's in denial about physicians leaving. You're probably in that world that can see it. My worry is it takes 3 to 5 years to turn around a scenario where you can re-attract physicians if you've made it an atmosphere where they feel like they're not welcomed, or that they feel demeaned and not respected. So I'm really hoping that we end up with an agreement that, again, makes it inclusive, where people feel welcome, that without a formal retainment policy within it, we still have a scenario where the doctors feel like they're welcomed in Alberta, and that we can use it in itself as a retainment recruitment vehicle. So we'll see. I'm hopeful, but no for sure yet.
No, absolutely. And I'm hoping that February is going to bring good news all around. So let's, fingers crossed, you're able to make progress in that area. And with regards to AMA, like being the past president, as you've highlighted, and being, at that forefront of negotiation at that point as well, that was pretty incredible. I'm sure you've got so much to take away that experience, and it is being put to good use right now in the current situation.
Yeah, yes, I think, I think it brings a point to that there is a business to medicine. Yeah. And I think you probably appreciate that with your background, that yes, we're out there helping people. We have our mandates to make sure that we do no harm. that we make people in need be serviced with good access and quality and safety. So yes, those are all hugely important and priorities for the medical world, but also there's the business of medicine. There is that scenario where we have to deal with business at a government level, at a contract level. We have to deal with business and how we run our practices, how we decide we're going to take our income sources and convert those into our people we surround ourselves with, the support staff, how we run our offices, what equipment we buy, what services we provide. There's so many parts to business that physicians need to learn and run as part of their lives, whether they're in a group practice or in a hospital practice. The business of medicine is before them every single day. And I think my background, what I bring to CMA is really the years of business. In the 20 years that I've had my MBA, I've had 40 years of board experience. And so I think having different hats on as a president of a business, as a CEO, as a chairperson, as a board member, those things actually do round you in a way that you can at least offer a really rounded way of being at those business tables with trying to achieve something that's a win-win for both sides, no matter what negotiation you're on. And I think that's what it's taught me, that there's a huge business of medicine that cannot be ignored by our profession. And when it is, it's to our detriment.
100%. And I found that tremendously, just speaking with the physicians I do, as well as even in a negotiation for a profit share split, for example, in a medical clinic. Quite often they don't even know where to start, and they agree on things that in hindsight they realize may not have been the best decisions for them professionally and financially, and then a lot of trouble happens. And that's why you get a lot of turnaround sometimes, with physicians leaving practices because they're just not happy about certain things. So I do believe that I strongly believe, actually, that a component of business should be in the medical curriculum so that you could actually educate these physicians coming out of practice. Because not only in just physician compensation, but also in just running the practice. How could you do it in the most efficient manner and cut down some of the laborious manual tasks that's taking far too long and costing far too much of their valuable time, and streamline that process to make it more efficient. So I do agree there is a business in medicine, and it would be an awesome project to tackle and to actually put some meaningful controls and processes in place that could make an impact at the end of the day, make the profession run smoother.
Totally agree. I mean, I think even businesses like yourself, the one you're running, is part of the service for that business of medicine. So when physicians skip that step of actually going to expertise and surrounding themselves by the proper expertise, no matter whether it comes from a private source or their own associations, it's a mistake to do that. And the AMA has resources, business resources that physicians can use. The CMA had their MD Financial as part of the arm of helping physicians get the business of medicine done. So, those are critically important for, I think, achieving that balance that we all look for. If you're happy with your practice, but unhappy with the business of medicine, or unhappy with the income, considering how hard you work, well, you're not a happy person. So you have to kind of get that right and surround yourself with the right people, the right resources, whether you don't have to learn them yourselves, but boy, you better pay attention. It's just like anything. You don't go to a muffler shop when you've got an engine problem with your car, right? So it's kind of like one of those. You better surround yourself with the right resources.
100%. And that's actually a really good segue into the next question, which is, what do you hope to achieve in this role if you are elected as CMA President? How could you help the profession and help the physicians move forward?
I think by following the pathway that we're on, I think the CMA fortunately has changed very much. It used to have a scenario where a CMA president would come in and say, my priority for this year of my presidency is this particular project. So let's say it's senior care. Mm-hmm. And so for a year, the whole organization would pivot and shift and try to make a little improvement in senior care. And I think instead what the CMA's done is they've really nicely listed their priorities in terms of the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 25 years. Because I think for us as a national organization and for Canadians, we need to be able to ask the question, where is our healthcare system 10 years from now? What do our children look at with their children? How have we structured things in our healthcare system that provide quality care? I'm concerned that the trajectory we're on is not sustainable. How do we, when we already pay so much of our budget provincially and nationally on healthcare, now accept the notion of pharmacare, now accept the notion of innovation, new procedures, new drugs? How does that continually be paid for, and yet we maintain our life and lifestyle as a developed country? So I think that forces the question in terms of saying the status quo is not acceptable. Yes, it works. We're not particularly efficient. But as a national organization, we need to contribute to that conversation that can look at the long lens and say, where are we in Canada 10 years from now, 25 years from now? What do we look at? How do we assure our children and our grandchildren end up with a healthcare system that we can all be proud of? And so if I can contribute in my small way to that journey being achieved with that long lens, that it's inclusive, that we have a place for Indigenous physicians, Black physicians, visible minorities, that gender is taken care of, that women in medicine feel that they are equal, that the pay gaps are taken care of. Those things need to happen. I think our current trajectory for many of those things is too slow. It's still too status quo. And so I think we need to light a fire. I think some of those things need to happen. They need to become priorities, and that's how we get to that next 10, 25 years, by empowering people, by making people feel like, yes, you're backed, you are equal. Come forth to the table with your thoughts, lead away. So my leadership style, I would say I would surround myself with the people that matter, the people that get it done. I would empower them. I would treat them as equals. I wouldn't just surround myself with people that agree with me. I would include those that don't agree with me. So that to me is leadership. It's what you leave behind. It's who feels that they say, oh, I don't remember what he did, but I sure remember that I was welcome at the table. That to me is good leadership.
100%. And I wish you the very best in that endeavor. Fingers crossed, I'm rooting for you. I really do hope. When would you have the results of the election? When is the election?
So the physicians start to vote in February. So the results of the voting ends on February 24th. So the way it works is in each year, a different province or territory is the territory that puts forth a president-elect. And then the physicians within that province or territory are allowed to vote. And then that vote comes forth as the chosen person that's presented to the AGM in August of each year. Mm-hmm. And so there's a rotation, a natural rotation that occurs throughout our country every 13 years. Then Alberta would come up. And Alberta's, in its past two presidencies, they've had a female and a male president, Dr. Ruth Collins-Nakaying and Dr. Louis Francis Goody. And interestingly, I was just trying to recall, I think 7 of the last 15 presidents of CMA have been females, and the current chair of the CMA board is a female. So I like that. We're heading in the right direction. So on February 26th, we'll know which of us, of the 5 candidates, gets elected. And, you know, I feel like I'm running with, not against the other candidates. I feel confident listening to all of them that they would be great leaders. So if I don't get elected, I'm okay. I'll support them. I'm quite happy to see their names. You know, to see a visible minority represented in the candidacy is great. To see 2 Indigenous physicians, one of which I know very well, the other I don't. I'm enlightened. I feel it's great. So I hope that the physicians in Alberta feel they have a good choice. It would be better if there was a female candidate, no doubt. There isn't one. I could list 25 female leaders in Alberta that could have put their name forward with confidence. But you know, it's all about timing and balance and what you can do. And it is the top position. It is the top position in all of Canada. So I think experience matters. I think devotion matters. In your president year, you need to give them 220 days of your year for that presidency. That is a big commitment, 3 years of your life. So, you know, yes, I've heard the criticism that there are not females candidates, and I would rather there be them, but, you know, it's all part of timing and balancing your life and deciding what's best. So I'm hoping that Alberta physicians feel they have a good choice with the 5 candidates. I hope they don't have trepidation as they vote. They should vote with confidence that it's quite okay, and that whoever they elect, I think, will do a great job.
Fantastic. I totally agree. And, you know, the candidates had the opportunity to put themselves forward, and the 5 have done so. So I think that, as you said, every candidate is a good candidate, and we can just look forward to the election with optimism and hope. And I definitely will be rooting for you. So all the best in that. We just have a couple minutes left, so I don't want to end abruptly. I'd just love to hear, do you have any last final sentiments that you would like to share with our viewers in terms of all your collective overall experience? What would you leave as your final parting words on the show?
Well, I think always in life, we're better to kind of take a step back and look at the things that are important to us as individuals. So in my case, for me, my family was exquisitely important to me. So even as a busy young physician trying to do everything like everyone tries to do, I still made my children and my family, my marriage, a really important part. I felt like I was involved in my children's upbringing. I felt I took time out of every day, whether it be the morning or the evening or part of their weekend, that I played a role as a parent in their lives, that it was meaningful. Same with my relationship, that I gave it the time to nurture it like anything else in terms of my marriage. And, you know, I think family ends up being our ultimate support for all the things we do. So when people ask, oh, how do you do that? Well, most of the time you do the things you do because you've had adequate supports, that you've actually had that system in place within your own nucleus that said, yes, you can do this, and we've got your back. And they're kind of the unsung heroes for anyone's success, I think. So for me, my parting words are, no matter what you do, just make sure that your friends and your family are given the proper due time, and that you nurture along, no matter what obligations you have, no matter how much travel you do, no matter how many tasks you take on. If you can't find that balance to make sure you nurture your support and surround yourself with it, then your odds of success go down, not up. So, you know, that balance in terms of reading books, that balance in terms of putting yourself out there, challenging yourself, all dependent on the support system you have in place. So my parting words are, still keep the balance, surround yourself with your friends, surround yourself with your family, nurture those relationships, because ultimately those are the things that make you happy, not whether you've been president somewhere or a board member somewhere or traveled somewhere or you're worth $1 gazillion. That won't matter at the end of the day.
100%. I could not agree more. And I see we got a couple of minutes, like we haven't been cut off of Zoom. So what are you reading at the moment? Because you did mention in that last sentiment that don't forget your family, but also have time to read. Can you recommend to our readers any inspiring books that you have read?
Sure. So one I just finished is called Small Great Things. And the title is actually named after Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And he, I think, said, I can't get the quote quite right, but I think it was in the order that if I cannot do one great thing, I will do many small great things. And she wrote this book, and it's actually a book about racism. And it's called Small Great Things, and it's Jody Piolette, I think is her last name. Sorry, if people want it, just text me or anything, and I'm quite happy to get it. But I loved the book because it talked about many things. It was so relevant, even in terms of Black Lives Matter, in terms of the assault on the Capitol Hill, in terms of white supremacy, and it really focused, the whole book focused on this Black nurse and her life and how she managed. And it's fictional, but oh my God, it was so powerful. It was quite fantastic. So I just finished that book and was just opens up so many things that you're not aware of as a privileged white male. You know, those kind of books I really like. I read Nelson Mandela's autobiography recently, and that's a great book. I've read a couple biographies. The book called One, which was about the tennis champion Nadal, who you watched his career and his father and his battle to excellence and what it takes and the sacrifice. And I thought that was meaningful. And then I read the biography from, his name is escaping me, the former CEO of Apple that passed away. Isn't that terrible? I don't remember his name, but yes, thank you, Steve Jobs. How can you imagine that? He just goes out of your
That happens to me.
Yeah. Anyway, I love that book. I thought it was, amazing to watch, kind of a genius, innovator, isolated, difficult life he had, struggling in spite of his accomplishment, his own happiness. And that was a very interesting book. So yeah, I really like to read. I read more on my holidays than I do in my regular days, but I really get a lot out of reading.
Fantastic. You've left us with a few great books, and I'm actually going to look them up, and I'm going to actually try and get my hands on a few great things. Is it a few great things or little great things?
I got to read it once. Jodi Picoult, Picouli.
Perfect.
Judi, Judy Picoult. And she's an American white female who's really quite well written. And I think you would enjoy that book.
100%. I'm excited. I'm gonna grab a copy of it and I'm gonna read it. I thought Zoom was going to cut off at 40 minutes, but it hasn't. So I'm going to ask you one question that was on my list, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Thank you. With regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, with regards to the vaccine, are you for or against it? I hear so many different views from people, whether they are going to take it or not. Could you maybe give us some advice in that respect?
Sure. So maybe I will do so with my science hat on, if that's okay. So my background, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in cellular microbiology, and I have a PhD candidacy in molecular virology. And I did my biochemistry during that time and then went into medicine. So I feel like I have the adequate kind of research science background to comment. So hopefully that qualifies my opinion. So my opinion is that firstly, we need to recognize that there is genuine vaccine hesitancy out there, that it is a scenario where people say, but what actually happens to my body? What potential harm can occur from me putting something in my body that normally wouldn't belong? And so we have to firstly acknowledge vaccine hesitancy, but make sure that we tackle that vaccine hesitancy with facts, with science, with understanding. And so, vaccines, firstly, the fastest vaccine that was ever made in the past was the mumps vaccine. And it took 2 years. And it was considered a fantastic accomplishment. If you look at vaccine technology, if you look at HIV, we've been working on HIV for the last 20 years, and we still do not have a vaccine. So vaccine development is extraordinarily difficult. It requires the best innovations of science. What I love about our vaccines for COVID-19 is that we've used the latest, greatest science technology. And several groups that are very different in terms of where they're located and the science behind them have kind of come to the same vaccine technology together, whether it be Oxford, whether it be AstraZeneca, whether it be J&J, whether it be Pfizer, Moderna. So these vaccines have used a new technology where it's no longer the virus itself coming in to you. It's no longer a modified virus coming into you. It's no longer a virus that's been broken up and injected into you. The virus that the vaccine that we're talking about today is essentially a component of the virus genome. So that part of the genetic sequence that allows that virus to produce one of its proteins, that small segment of that viral genetic map is injected into us. Our cells take up that little segment of genome and it goes through our cellular machinery to produce the one same protein that the virus produces, called a spike protein. It's that little spike that sticks out of the globe, and when you see that spike, that's the spike protein. So what happens is our body says, oh, this is a new protein. I've never seen this before. The immune system then reacts to that protein that says, I'm going to treat this as a foreign protein and get rid of it. So we kick in two parts of our immune system, the one that produces antibodies and the one that fights viruses, one called the B cell system, the other the T cell system, and both are kicked in to fight that one protein. So our system then, upon seeing, after 4 to 6 weeks of seeing that initial protein injected into our arm, now says, if it shows up again, I will get rid of it. So today's technology is ultra fantastic, where we use our own cell machinery to induce an immune response that now is going to attack the presence of that protein. So now if we get exposed to the virus, the COVID-19 comes our way, and we have those antibodies and the viral immune system to knock out that spike protein, we do not get infected. We have a 95% vaccine rate, which means those that get the vaccine are going to become immune after the second dose. It's about 75% after a single dose. So to improve that, that's why we have that second dose. And that window of the second dose can be extended by the look of the newer studies that are coming out. So am I excited about it? Absolutely. As a past scientist or scientist that likes to follow that world, this is the latest, greatest technology. It's the safest vaccine probably we've ever seen. There is always going to be vaccine hesitancy because people would rather not have to take it. But on the other hand, wow, look at our world without it. It is truly turned upside down. And no matter what corner of the world you're in, it is devastating when you lose a loved one, or you watch someone suffer, or they end up with a chronic illness because of this virus. To me, I would say most healthcare workers that have paid attention will be the first in line. And the long-term care facilities should be the second, and those vulnerable should be the third, and those in the front lines, whether you're cleaning the rooms or cleaning the beds or taking care of people in the ICU as a doctor or a nurse, those front care workers need to be first. And workers, I'm including the support staff. So yeah, we all have to wait. I'm not till phase 3 because I'm not in the hospitals. I'm not seeing the critically ill patients. Yes, I'm seeing them in my clinic, but not sick patients. So we have to take our turn. I think it is fabulous technology. The governments are behind us making sure that you don't pay for it, that you get it no matter if you have $1 in your pocket or many dollars in your pocket. So I think the approach is right. Everybody wants it faster than we can get it because it's a manufacturing issue and a distribution issue. But I think by the end of this year, if you probably want it, you can get it. And that's pretty darn good. So that's a lot of words to say yes. When it's my turn, I'll be in line. And would I hesitate? No. And if you are sick with a chronic illness, if you're immune compromised, the more recent data says it's safe. If you're pregnant, it says it's safe. If you are breastfeeding, it says it's safe. So even our preliminary data in those individuals with their own special needs at the moment, the data certainly is there to say so far so good.
Fantastic. Thank you for that reassurance, because it's been a topical issue, and from what you've said and how you've explained it and broke it down, I feel so much more confident about it as well. So thank you so much for reassuring us, especially from the scientific point of view, and being able to understand that this technology is just not any technology. It's leading technology that's working with our body. How much better can you get? That's brilliant. I really hope there's this rapid decline in the number of COVID cases. My family is from South Africa. It's devastating there right now. There's so many loved ones, especially healthcare professionals, that are just succumbing to this virus, and it's very sad what's happening there. So my prayer is that this vaccine is going to be the answer, and even to the variants that's arising right now, it will be effective and we can control the spread, because goodness me, I cannot imagine life to continue like this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, even the variants are a worry for sure. I mean, so far, I think there are 3 or 4 variants out there. There's the UK variant. There's one actually from South Africa. There's one from Brazil. I think there's a 4th one being reported from China. And the good news is, I think the UK, the recent data says that our current vaccine is effective. So Moderna and Pfizer. And I think Pfizer is actually even modifying their vaccine to make sure that they even get better results against the variant. The newer variants, time will tell. But overall, the news is good. I guess so. You have to look at the glass half full and say, no, we'd rather not have to do this. We'd rather not have to lock down. We'd rather, not have to do these things. But if we all work together, we can lessen the impact of something that has potential to be even more devastating than we see.
100%, 100%. On that encouraging note, I'm going to leave you. I know you probably have a calendar full of scheduled calls or event or work that you need to do today. So thank you for offering us your time. Thank you for sharing all your incredible knowledge. I've been so inspired talking to you, and thank you for inspiring us.
Oh, thank you so much. And I very much enjoyed the morning with you, and I wish you the best of luck with your company. I think you are fulfilling a great role, and I hope people feel confident coming to you and your company, and recognizing that we all need to work together to make our world a better place.
100%. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. And we will be in touch. Please stay in touch, and we will be rooting for you, as I said. Take care. God bless. All the best.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.
Good day. Bye.
Bye-bye now.